Hi, I'm Joe,
And I'm Dave.
and we're the hosts of the Chasing Tomorrow podcast, where we bring you stories that delve into the science and spirit behind intriguing people doing extraordinary things.
Welcome to the Chasing Tomorrow podcast. This time, episode 25. We're one quarter of the way to 100. And today we got Kelly Young on the call. I can't wait to talk to her about her upcoming races, what she just ran only a week and a half ago. But really, Kelly is, the youth of our sport. The sport of ultramarathoning has been well known as to be kind of an old person sport. Runners don't really start peaking until they're 35, 40, 45. Sometimes even in their 50s and 60s. But I absolutely love talking to athletes in their 20s that are really interested in this type of racing, ultra endurance racing. And Kelly is just exactly that. In 2018, she ended up winning the Tahoe 100K. In 2019, she won the PCT, a 50 miler. In 2020, she won the Calico 50K, and only about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, she ended up winning the Lone Cactus last person standing event, and I think that her last lap she timed out on the 28th lap, so that would have been 112 miles, around 6.7 kilometers or 4.16 miles every hour for 28 hours. Welcome, Kelly, to the Chasing Tomorrow podcast.
Thank you, Dave. So happy to be here with you and Joe to chat and kick it for an hour and talk some fun things.
Can't wait. I love following you on Instagram, Kelly, because you have these amazing runs around San Diego that you get to do all the time. So maybe, before we jump into that, how did you find your way into ultramarathoning? Did you run as a kid in high school, college athlete, or you just had a bunch of friends? What brought you to running and into the sport?
So sports in general were a pretty big part of my life growing up. Both my parents coached me in basketball when I was younger. I'm actually one of 10 kids, and we're a huge basketball family. My dad.
You basically made up two basketball teams.
That was the running joke, my dad had 10 kids to play 5-on-5. So did that, played all the sports growing up. High school focused on basketball, and I did run track and cross country. Some of my cousins were very talented in cross country, running the local Philadelphia Catholic League, and they were winning, and I would go watch them, cross the finish line first, and it was super inspiring. So when I was a freshman, I ended up joining the team and did that all 4 years, and I loved it. Once it was time to go to undergrad, I decided to go to Myrtle Beach and, party it up for 4 years. So sports kind of took the back end of priority for a little bit there. But I stayed active. I played club lacrosse and intramural basketball and would run to stay in shape, on the road for the most part. Graduated and decided I wanted to move to California. Super random, but was ready for something new, and it was my time to see what was out there for me, I guess. So picked up and moved to LA, and that's when I started hiking. I had never, been on top of a mountain or really been on a trail for the most part until then. And we do have some really solid mountains here in Southern California. You just have to drive a little bit. People think of LA hiking and they're like, oh, you're going, to the Hollywood sign, which is still very cool. But I kind of got drawn to our local mountains and just really found a love for being out there for however long I could on my time off from work. So that was it. For a couple of years, I would just hike when I wasn't working, and all of a sudden, I was running into runners and hearing about all of these people who were running really long distances through the mountains. And I was intrigued I met one of my best friends now passing on a mountain. So she was running down with her dog and I was hiking up, and we ended up connecting, and she was a big part of just me learning more about the sport. And I started running on the trail then, just kind of happened one day. And then over time, went a little bit further and decided I wanted to do a race. And so I signed up for Tahoe 100K. About 2 months before that, I heard about, have you ever heard of Sufferfest beer?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't
So
that,
this is full circle, this quick story, because this ties me and Joe together. I
Beer always ties Joe and everybody together, by the way. Yeah.
oh,
I love it. So, yeah, I kind of was like, yeah, let's go big or go home, signed up for the 100K. A few of my friends were like, all right, Cal, like maybe you should just try the 50K. We want you to stay around, and anyway, I ended up one day just entering a Instagram contest that Sufferfest was doing. And I thought it was going to be for beer probably, or like, I don't know, some gear, but I found out that I won, and what I won was an entry into Tahoe 55K, which was 2 months prior to my 100K. And I was like, well, that's kind of a sign. I guess I'll do it. So I signed up and I went up to Tahoe, and it was the same weekend as Wanderlust. And somebody who worked, I'm not really sure, but Edward works for Performance Tea, and he was there at Wanderlust, just hanging out at the booth. And my friend was up there for the festival, and so I kind of made it a double trip for my race, and I was hanging out, getting some goodies before my race, and I met Edward, and we talked for, an hour or so, and that's how I kind of got looped into Joe's world a little bit. So I went on to run the race, and it was so hard, but it was so beautiful and fun. And, then from there, Tahoe 100K a couple months later, and I was hooked like most of us are.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And really,
cool.
what hooked you? Was it the beauty of the trails? Was it the community? Was it the challenge? Was it the sheer and utter distance and how kind of scary it was and how you felt at the finish line? What hooked you?
I think number one, the fun, the whole weekend. I mean, of course, I wasn't having fun the entire race. It was a little bit of a sufferfest, but the community brings the fun. The challenge to me is fun. Of course, being out there in beautiful mountains, that you can't really beat that, in my opinion. I kind of learned that like everybody has a different type of fun. So as long as you're finding like what yours is, keep doing that. I did struggle a little bit in the beginning because my life was so different. It happened really quick for me. And I was totally living like, I was a server, I was working, till midnight, and then we would go out and party a little bit, and then, do it all again the next day. And I was still hiking and doing what I loved, but I had a lot of friends who then when I started running all the time, like, we're like, well, what, like, what about time for us? And I still really enjoyed them, but I was like, but I'm having fun doing this now. And I think, yeah, it was everything for me.
I like that sort of story, I don't know, the way that it develops organically, it is, some things are just fitting for people, right? And we find that and we're attracted to it. So as you started in the racing and found that this suffering piece was part of it, there's a lot of different people who react differently to that. There's the ones who go out and say, I never want to feel that way again. And there's others of us who get intrigued by what's really going on. We often characterize pain as different than suffering. Pain is something we should really pay attention to, and suffering is, almost an honor for us to be able to do and to experience. Were you surprised? I mean, so basketball and some lacrosse and the rest, there's some of that. But when you got into the ultra running, did you like, what happened in your head when you started to realize, oh boy, this could be a while and it doesn't feel great, but
Yeah, I think I learned at a young age from somebody we all probably know that pain is weakness leaving the body, Joe. I'm just
uh-huh.
kidding.
Yeah.
No, but really, I feel like I did grow up kind of in a culture that was like everyone doesn't get a medal, you know. You have to show up and put in hard work, and it's not going to be the easiest thing all the time, and it might hurt, whether physical or mental sometimes, but if you really want something, that's how you have to get it. And I know people have different opinions, but that's just kind of how I was raised.
Hmm.
And so I think that lined me up a little bit for embracing the suffering and the struggle. I feel like a lot of us talk about how in ultra running, it's kind of important to know it's going to come, and also kind of like, marbles in a jar. So you've suffered a little bit, you can suffer a little more next time, and the world isn't going to end. So I think for me, it's just kind of thinking back on little pieces from even as long ago as when I was a kid, and just embracing it, I guess.
I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so, I love where you came from, because I feel like I've come from that same background where, yeah, not everybody gets a medal, and it's definitely earned. But even if you don't earn it, it's still But I always believe that there's a reward system for everyone. And what do you get from your reward system, from your training and racing and just being out there, competing, or even just doing your daily grind with lifting, or whatever your grind is when it comes to your sport? What are some of the rewards that you've received from this?
Yeah, definitely. I also want to say I absolutely agree with you that it's rewarding for everybody. I think our sport, whether you're getting a medal or not these days. But for me personally, when I think about, how I want to live and what I want out of life, I always think about happiness and, good conversations and um, places that I'm going to remember with people who, have touched me. And with the ultra running aspect of it, that's something I definitely get on the daily, even through a pandemic, staying connected to all my fellow friends who are out there still grinding through it. Super inspiring, super motivating for me. So sharing that with everybody, it's rewarding for me to hear from, something as simple as my little sisters, during the Lone Cactus the last week, and telling me, like how they can't even wrap their mind around it, but the next day they're going to go out and run 4.167 miles to try and better themselves. So I think it's a ladder, right? Like I have people I really look up to in the sport, and those people probably have people. So that's really rewarding to me, to kind of know that I'm giving back a little bit to people who might look up to me. So
Yeah, no, I think that's sort of a bit of the circle on this of life. And, I often, at least my own sense about it is, it's a bit of a privilege to be able to have these kinds of experiences. It's not a burden at all. It's like, yeah, and it's hurt. I mean, I've done stuff, we've all done it, and that is a temporal feeling, but the totality of what we find out, whether whatever philosophy you believe in, if we're trying to get to a sense of purpose and meaning and understanding, this is a pathway there. And it's fun that you've found that. The thing that I always enjoy, if I look at your Instagram feed or anything else about Kelly Young, is you're always smiling. I think that if there was a brand that you should work for, a toothpaste company, because you're just like the happiest looking person. I mean, you come across that way for sure, but you just must really enjoy what's going on in your life at this moment, because you can't carry it off. It's like I always had this little bit of a test, to someone is what's better if you say I'm fantastic or I'm excellent. But what I know is if you don't feel either of them, you can't say those words. You might say I'm good, but to say that you actually but you seem to be fantastic all the time. Is that a good assessment?
I am fantastic quite often. I definitely feel all of the emotions. I think it's important to. I'm big on personal growth and awareness and all of those things. And I think part of that is letting yourself feel sad when you are. But for the most part, I mean, what you said about it, I'm so grateful to be able to live this life. And I think about when I was younger, I mean, I don't know, I thought I was going to be, who knew what I thought I was going to do? I wanted to be a teacher, which I'm sure would have been great. But now I'm just, in this world where I feel almost like, I just am meant to be here. Joe, I can relate to you, and I know that you think that an important piece of life is to embrace the uncertainty of it and the mystery of it. And for the past 4 or 5 years, that has totally been kind of my motto. Ground yourself, but remember that life is groundless at the same time. And I think going into every day knowing that, that's kind of what makes me come out with a smile every time. Yeah, I'll share it because I think I love it so much. It's Pema Chodron. I might have butchered her last name, but she's a Buddhist practitioner. Anyway, she has a quote her 3 things that she should that she shares that you should do to kind of practice that life of uncertainty is be fully present, feel your heart, and then embrace without an agenda. So easier said than done sometimes with expectations, but the embracing, or I think it's engaging without an agenda. For me, it's just, if I can remember that, then I'll always have a smile on my face at the end of the day.
So to engage without an agenda, to me, I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump there. It screams backyard racing. And you just did extraordinarily well at a backyard style race. The lone cactus, last person standing. Because essentially you need to show up every hour and just be okay and be in that moment. A couple episodes ago, Joe and I, we interviewed Courtney DeWalter, who is ridiculous, especially at the backyard format, because I think that's where her head goes. And it's a primal space that you go where all you really need to do is run 4.16 miles that hour. It doesn't really matter that you did 50 or 60 or 70 of them before. It's just what you're doing in that moment, and you enter into the next hour without an agenda. Do you think maybe that's why you signed up and ran that race? And are you intrigued to do more backyard racing because of your mindset?
I think that's definitely a piece in it. I participated in the virtual one in April.
Oh, great! Yeah. Perfect. That was my event. We organized that. You bet.
Oh yeah, you definitely did. Oh my gosh, that was such a treat. I had so much fun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, really quickly, I'll just tell you a little bit about my experience with that. It was like the week before, and I wasn't doing anything, so thought that'd be a cool challenge. And so I live in North Park, San Diego, and I don't really run on the road ever, but I don't know, I figured I'd just do it in my neighborhood because that'd be cool. And my roommate was like, yeah, I'll crew you. She is not, very, she's a great crew, but she is so funny. She's Googling like how to keep an ultra runner awake and all of these amazing things. We had so much fun, just the 2 of us, we did 24 hours, but it was a blast. I would love to do that again. And then spinning to lone cactus, which I do have to say, You mentioned that I won that in the beginning. I was the last woman standing, but in this race format, right, it's the last person standing.
Right,
So
right.
Peter was the last in-person standing. I can't think of his last name, but and then there were 2 virtual runners still going as well. But I mean, you mentioned Courtney. I got to spend about a week with her in Hong Kong, almost immediately into my ultra running career. And when I won Tahoe 100K, it was a Solomon Running Academy event. So my present was to go to Hong Kong for a week with Solomon. So Courtney ends up being there. Of course, I mean, she is such an inspiration and one of the most amazing role models we have, not just in the sport, but for, you know, women in general. And absolutely kind of like, to some extent, intrigued by following in her footsteps a little bit, and with her and all of the other amazing women trying the backyard ultra and succeeding, that definitely was a little bit of stoke and intrigue for me as well. So following along the past couple of years at Biggs, and you know, I followed you a little bit, Dave, and heard
Awesome.
about the speedo, but
That was a terrible mistake. Yeah.
anyway, I just, you know, it's another, it's like almost like a sub section of our ultra running world, and it intrigues me 100%. I want to go further, of course, than what I did a couple weeks ago, and yeah, the hope is to keep pushing myself and get back out there.
Yeah, we're all intrigued because, you know, we had Laz on and we sort of characterized him as the diabolical hillbilly from Tennessee, and because he crafts, and if you listen to that episode, as bad as our connection was, you almost went to Harvard for a weekend to get the insight this guy has into sort of the human psyche and human performance, and he puts it in the context of practicality, and so that we can experience it. Because, you know, one of the dilemmas of life is we actually don't really, I mean, it's maybe a dilemma on one side, it's a blessing on the other, is you don't know what your potential is. So you got to go after it. And you probably never reach it because it's hard to tap into this immense power that we have. But you squander it because you don't have an opportunity. And so these races are showing people an opportunity to sort of, you know, in this context of, there is no end, sort of, and what is it that I'm trying to accomplish, goes against the way our sort of our dopamine reward system works, because you're not going to get that big pop, which is what keeps us going. And here you're just sort of surviving in some sense. So it's a really great exploration. So I do think it's going to get further developed, more than we probably ever imagined. And we'll hope that Dave puts on his Canadian version this year. We'll go up and we'll do it together. There are a couple of things that I've sort of just on the fun side. So we know you work at noon, and one of the things that you seem to have some fun with is having people eat the tablets. And so tell us a little bit about your, like what happens during that kind of, you seem to have gotten it, like you understand what's going to happen, but they sort of dissolve in your mouth and explode.
Oh man, yeah, you haven't tried it yet?
I haven't tried it yet. So what does happen, Kelly?
Oh, it's just like speaking of fun, it's just like a burst of fun in your mouth, I guess you could describe it as. You know, I want you to find out. So
right.
Maybe we'll have to get you some. But basically, it fizzes a lot, and some foam happens, and most people think it's fun. I mean, hey, so many people have seen me post videos of people doing it and being like, "What is happening in my mouth right now?" And they're always so funny. And then every time, when I'm like, okay, I'm with them, you know, and I'm like, all right, your turn. And they're like, all right, fine. So it's like, they're intrigued and they want to do it. So I think it's fun. You got to keep work fun, you know?
Oh my God. Actually, we don't talk much about the performance tea products, but uh, I have an emerging group of people who actually just put the powder in their mouth now and don't make it into a liquid.
Hmm.
And it came mostly from like one guy, he was out camping and ran out of water and he still wanted to use energy and snooze and he just kept putting scoops. He's like, that's what I do now. So yeah, we can have some fun. We've done that and that sort of wakes you up for sure. Like, oh, wow, this is different than the cinnamon challenge, by the way, but similar kind of idea. You know,
We get that trending on TikTok, Joe.
exactly.
Straight.
All
Yeah.
right, Kelly. See, Dave, this is why we hang out with people who are a little younger than us.
Right?
Good
Yeah, yeah,
idea.
yeah. They're trending, right?
Although that's not hard to find people younger than us.
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Well over
listen,
three
Kelly,
quarters of the population are younger than us, Joe.
I know, sadly. So you have yeah, you've gotten involved in some of the big players in the sport too, which is fun. Solomon, Sunto, Noon as well, and sort of I I really find, I mean, I know Solomon from when I was a kid, the first pair of skis I bought was a Solomon pair of skis. And I really love what some of the brands are doing in our sports too. You saw what Solomon did with Killian, the kind of deep support that they provided. And yeah, you're sort of, I guess, an ambassador for the different companies. And you're in your walk of life, do you feel that that's like a good thing to have this combination of brands and activity and people coming together to advance the cause?
I definitely think so. Again, feel so grateful to be supported and a part of this sport and so many amazing brands. It, I think, has contributed a lot to A, my success, and B, how much fun I am having. I mean, especially 2020, things shifted. The last event I was at, I was working for Noon, but it was the LA Marathon, right before COVID hit, March 12th or something, 30,000 people. And then everything just shut down. So for me to be a part of these communities has definitely helped throughout. And I mean, everyone for the most part, is also inclusive. And even if you're not sponsored by them, I would hope that it's still all a big party for all of us to get together and
Mhm.
stay connected. I am excited to see, what happens in 2021 and how um, everything that's happened in 2020 affects where the creative goes from brands and doing things like the 24-hour Killing on a track, and B, also like, are things going to change? Is the support going to change? Stuff like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that we're looking at a brand new time and a brand new world, and yeah, brands are on top of that. Let's face it. As much as we say, oh, the Nikes of the world are making tons of money, and I even know of a couple people that were saying, oh, so, the Killian thing with 24-hour Solomon was just using this as a big marketing thing. I don't believe in that at all. I think that there's no way that was Solomon's idea. That was Killian's idea. And then Solomon just said, okay, what can I do to support?
Mhm.
This is what companies do. And any athlete who's sponsored, I'm sponsored by numerous brands as well too, Kelly, and none of them say, hey, Dave, we need you to do this. They say, hey, how can we support you? And what do you want to do? And then how can we back you on that? How can we make these things possible? And so I love it. But yet, let's face it, brands are struggling. People are spending less. People aren't going out to races. People are, I think that like you just said, Kelly, we all need to be supporting these brands that we want, available when times get good again, because they will. And we also need to be going out and supporting races and making sure that those races, because we value them so much, that they're there in the end, so that in 2021 or 2022 or 2023 or whatever it is, that we can also go still sign up for Hard Rock and all the races down in Arizona and have fun, because this is what we do for fun, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I have faith in our ultra running community that will continue to show up for our races, and whether it's virtual or in person, depending on, I guess, what you're comfortable with. And same with the brands. I think that we're all in it together, and we're all in it for the right reasons, which is to see, like Joe said, what are we capable of, and to keep pushing that and finding that, personally, and then watching each other do it too and cheering each other on. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, I have so much faith in our community that we will continue into 2021, probably stronger than ever.
Totally. And that's exactly what it is. It's, to revert back to what you were talking about that quarantine backyard ultra back in April. So just a little bit of background about that race is that was my race, and there was me and 5 others who created that. And we created it within 2 weeks. And so I was supposed to run across Canada for rare disease, blah, 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 blah. And it got canceled. And we were like, okay, how do we pivot? What do we do? And we said, okay, we want to create a free event, but let's do an event on Zoom. And I think the NBA got canceled, the NFL, everything got canceled. Let's just like put an event on Zoom, and let's get like 2,000, 4,000, 6,000 people on a Zoom meeting, because I don't know if that's ever happened before, but why not? And let's just like go out and create a thing where people can race against the fastest runners in the world, or your neighbor or whomever, and let's just do this. And that's what I love about the community is everybody's dreaming up all these ideas right now of like, oh, hey, how do we create inclusivity, right? And so, and I see, Noon doing that. I see Solomon doing that. It's pretty rad. Performance T is doing that as well too. It's pretty cool stuff. It's a really cool community, isn't it, Kelly?
Yeah, I think about it all the time.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is that, there are lots of sports and we love all of them, and they have their own organizing construct, and they attract, one through some of the systems, from high school all the way through to professional. And then there's some others that are a little bit, sort of unstructured, which is a little bit about what happens in ultra running, because it is sort of, you put all the pieces together to create an ultra race. It's not as much, you're not training for that when you're in high school or college. You evolve into it. And, but what I've enjoyed, because I sort of went through my own journey, I was a marathon runner, then I became an Ironman, and then I got a little tired of that. And then I was like, oh, wow, these people are just so chill, they're just like, they're so like, when we're talking to Courtney, her story of, she was running whatever, it was her first 50 miler or something. She fell, some guy comes back to help her up. It's always that sort of, we're here to help each other. Crew. I mean, the crew, like, how do you get through some of these races without a crew? You can do it, but, it's part of the ethic of the entirety of the sport, because then other people to get to experience it with you, because they see stuff they would never see. And so you've run, I think, now over 100 miles. Do you have plans to go try the 200-mile distance, to try, longer distances than you've taken on to this point? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to give it a go at the 200-mile race in, a typical ultra format, like a mountain run. And then also try and get there in a backyard. I've learned firsthand and from some awesome runners that when you go into the backyard, it's hard, if you want to go far, don't set a goal, because then you'll hit that goal and stop. And that's what I did at the virtual one. I set 24 hours and I hit 24 hours, and I was like, my bed's in the other room. I'm going to go lay down. So I did go into Lone Cactus, with that in mind, like just gonna go until, I can't go anymore. I ended up having a knee injury, but I want to definitely see if I can hit that 200 mark in a race like that one day. I mean, I think I have a long road ahead of me in the sport. I have a lot to learn still, but if I just keep showing up and running every day and keeping the smile on my face and having fun, I have no doubt that I'll eventually get there.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing my personality too, like I'm sure I'll go for a mountain 200 sooner rather than later. I have a coach now, so that's been fun. I've since I started in the ultra world about 2.5 years ago now, I kind of always had the mindset like I don't want to lose that adventure side of it, and I always want to make sure that if I want to go, summit Mount Whitney and then Mount Langley the next day, kind of undertrained, but it's fun that I want to be able to actually do it. And I kind of thought a coach would be like, absolutely not. And anyway, I found one that fit really great with me. And so, we still have that in the back of our mind. And that's important, is to continue to have fun always, but also like, hey, I have these goals and you're an expert in the sport and I've been around and I want to learn from you, because why not? That's super cool. And so yeah, we're going to see what we can do and keep having fun in the meantime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like there's
puts on
go
some
ahead, Joe.
good 200s, the Tahoe 200 and then the Moab 200 or 240. So, she's an amazing race director. And then Aravipa, they crafted this Cocodona 250, which is starting in May. I have that sort of on my potential list of ones to try. That'll be a fun, hard one through all of Arizona. Yeah, it's interesting, because it is fundamentally, when you're talking to Dave Kelly, it's hard to like, he'll run 200 miles in a week and, it's a training week. But for us, it'll be a bit of it's fascinating to have to deal with the sleep balance in those races, in my opinion, which is, and everyone told me, sleep, if you're going to sleep more in the beginning, the end doesn't help, because then you're too tired and you're just already past, fatigue and into exhaustion. So like 1 hour the first night, you better, if you're going to sleep 3 hours at any point, sleep 3 hours then, even though you feel like you're falling behind. That is, unless you're going to try to, pull it really hard, like, Courtney and others, no sleep. But it is a lot of strategy more in a 200-mile race than there is in 100, because you can sort of grit your way through there. So you'll have to get some coaching tips from Dave.
Yeah, I'll be hitting you up, Dave. It's going to be a challenge. I'm not a big planner. I showed up at my first 100 and my crew, my friend Sana and Eamon. Eamon's a big planner, and we're like hanging out at my car before, and he's like, all right, like, what's your plan? What are you expecting to be at each aid station? What do you want at each aid station? And I looked at his girlfriend Sana, who knows me really well, and we just started cracking up. And she was like, she does not have a plan. Right. But I recognize that, I went into Lone Cactus with a little bit more of a plan, and it helped. And I think especially as I try and go farther, that's going to be important to have some sort of idea going into it.
Well, yeah, and I find, like, just my experience with racing, and every time that you go and do something a little bit further or different, you think that you might have a plan going in, then just goes all to pot. Like I've attempted 60 races twice, and I've had my ass handed to me both times, and it was a terrible hot mess. Because sleep, when you've been running for 2 days and you just can't sleep, and you lie there and you're deathly tired, you're 48 hours into a race and you're lying there for 3 hours staring at your eyelids thinking like, bloody hell, I need to sleep. That's exactly the wrong feel. And then even after the third day, you still can't sleep. It's just a complete and utter mess. So even having those concepts, but sometimes it's going there and you're like, oh, I understand all the wheels at play here, right? But I mean, like, so my next question to you is, I love variety within the sport, and I love, the trail 200 milers and the road 50Ks and the backyard style. I'm just so curious what Laz is going to come up with next. It's going to, tease the rest of all of us of like what the human potential could be. But I think that there was something really rad that happened last weekend where Killian ended up attempting to break Yannis Karos's 24-hour track world record. And I think that a lot of trail runners, and hopefully I'm not overstepping here. I know I'm not with who's on the call, but I think there's a lot of runners in the world that go, yeah, who's this YK? Who's this Yannis Karos guy? And really on a track, for 24 hours, you could hold a pretty good pace. And 303 kilometers, or what is that in miles, 188 miles or something rather, really isn't that far. And you know what? It really, 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 really is. And I think it's one of the hardest running records that will stand for probably another 40 or 50 years. But I think that, a guy like Kilian ended up really drawing attention from the running world about just really how hard this is. Were you watching that? And then secondly, would a 24-hour track race intrigue you, because they're different learned skills?
Yeah, I was definitely following along, and continued to after even, he dropped and had his mishap. But yeah, I mean, I am so aware that it's tough. And when I said like, yeah, I want to do 100 or 200-mile someday in the near future, fully aware that it's easier said than done. But you have to try to find out, and I think so. It intrigues me. I'm not chasing, some road miles every day, but if I get to a point where that seeing how far I could go in 24 hours on a track, I mean, probably. I was going to sign up for a 24-hour race in San Diego, December 26th, that just got canceled. So I guess I probably would one day. I don't know. I'm an easy sell. I think I'd just like try it out, and I've never done anything, honestly, that I've been like, I'm never doing that again. So
Cool.
No type 3 fun yet, huh?
I guess not.
No. Yeah.
Or you just, how it works. You forget about it. you forget about it the next day. And you're back to seeing what's next.
Yeah, no, I think if, the ultra running, I mean, even Dave Mackey, who had probably a type 3 run when he got hurt, he still came back and went after it. The other thing that's makes it harder, what, I found out about Tahoe, of course, the up and the down and altitude. And, there's some races that they're sort of designed for success and some are designed for failure. The failure rate at the Leadville 100 is about 50%. And so, different races are going to challenge you differently, no matter how fit you are. The terrain can challenge you, altitude can challenge you. So what the nice part about that is it opens up, everything from running around a track for 24 hours to, a fast 50 miler to, these crazy, I always find it interesting because pretty much everyone who shows up is fit enough to finish. And then you might not, which is also sort of fun because you just never know what might happen. Even Dave found that when he did his first challenge race across Canada, not like he's not capable of doing it. But you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And what's your mileage a weekly basis, Kelly? How much are you out running now?
Sorry, we're having some dog play. I'll be right back.
That's all
No
good.
problem.
Yeah, but yeah, Joe, kind of getting back to your point about, some races are set up for success and other ones are set up for failure. And I think the ultimate race that's set up for failure is the backyard style, right? Is that everyone will fail. I mean, when I say fail, I mean, even if your goal going in, although you should never have a goal in a backyard race, is 30 hours and you do 39 hours, that's a complete and utter success. But you still didn't get up for another loop or didn't end up, getting in from that last lap. So yeah, you're right. There is so many different types of events out there. So yeah, so Kelly, back to that question. What's your weekly mileage? What does a week look like in Kelly Young's life?
Yeah. So up and down on the mileage. I feel like I tend to stick, in 2020 at least, I've been focusing a little bit more on incorporating strength, which I never did before I hired a coach. And also like incorporating some yoga, lots more cross training. Running wise, probably 50 to 60. So on an average week, right before Lone Cactus, bumped it up. I mean, they came out with the race a month before it happened, so there wasn't much time. But bumped it up to 90 for 2 weeks before the race, and then had the race. So, yeah, I mean, talking to my coach, definitely want to get a little bit more higher mileage in. But it's also weird times, and I don't know, I just got a puppy, and so that takes up a lot of my time. And I was home in Philly for quite a bit, about 2 months ago. And so just spending time with family and prioritizing a little bit.
Right. Well, I think it's always funny when you ever talk to ultra runners about, what big miles is, what small miles, what are some runners wanting to run, what are the other, you talk to an average runner, and what is an average runner, right? Like a 10K or half marathon or whatever. That's big, big, big miles. That's huge still. But in my experience, Kelly, it takes many, many years to kind of develop that ultra marathoning base where 70 miles develops into 90 miles a week, and then that develops into 110. And some runners really never really go there and have great success with having a smaller mileage and doing more strength and speed work, zone 4 and zone 5, what Joe was talking about earlier. Do you see yourself one day being a high mileage girl, or is it or do you thrive off of variety and in cross training, and then strength work and speed work and all that stuff?
Yeah, I don't know if I thrive in it quite yet. It's been an adjustment for me for sure. I enjoy building strength in different ways for sure, but it's also not something that I've completely built the habit yet. So I'm still kind of, getting in the habit of making it a priority. I see myself, I wouldn't say running, 120 or even 100 weekly by any means. But I would like to sit more so around like the 70 to 80 on like a base average. And then like amp it up a little bit before some bigger, longer races.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I think it depends on what your goals are. I mean, Joe and I were talking to Pete Kostelnick on our podcast, I don't know, a couple months ago. And, I'm a big mileage guy. Like when I'm training, I'll get up to from 150 to 220 miles a week. But it's really funny. I remember talking to him right before the run across Canada. And I said, yeah, I'm running, 300 kilometers a week in training. But and then the very first week when you start running across Canada, you're running 700 to 800. And then you do that for months on end. And so, there's big fitness and then there's big monster fitness, right? And so when you're talking to a guy like Pete, though, I think he averages over a marathon a day for all 365 days of the year. And him going out and doing an 80 or 100 kilometer run, or sorry, 50 to to a 60, 70 mile run is just a Tuesday for him. And but also his base, his regular usage is, hey, I'm going to take a jogging stroller and run from key to key, which for even people like yourself, Kelly, is just ridiculous. And so it all depends, I think, if 3 years down the road, if your goals are, hey, I want to be a really fast 100K runner, or I really want to get into this backyard style racing or whatever, I think your training will just follow suit. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all about adaptability and, like you said, seeing what the future even holds. I mean, sure, I can plan and say in a couple of years I'll be hoping to really focus on backyards, but who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So
yeah, no, I think that's fair. What I think is nice about this, so oh man, my journey, like especially in the triathlon and cycling space and all that, I didn't know anyone who could help me. And I used to read, there were these things called magazines, I would read a magazine. I didn't even, I always make people laugh. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to wear your underwear underneath bike shorts. Like, how would you know that? Like, it's like, doesn't say it on the package. And so you figure these things out. But what I think is cool, and part of why Dave and I are doing this, is this idea of connecting anyone in this sport with anyone in this sport so that we don't have to struggle through. I mean, struggling through learning is fine. That's fine, but we don't always have to do that. And it's nice to be able to, and I do find in this sport almost more than others that people will take you through the stories. They'll go crew you, they'll pace you, they'll just be out there for you. And I really have found that part of the sport. Like in a lot of ways, it's one of the few that you're not really competing with each other, even though you want to try and win. Uh, and especially in this build up, I'm still learning, and I love, just hanging out with Dave to find out what he's thinking about, as well as all the others we've had on. And so, that's the nice part about our community. So you're in it. Do you find some of your friends, Dave started off, we don't mean to pick on age in any way or shape or form, but do you find that what you're doing is encouraging others and you can help your friends or other people, who are interested in the sport? Do you find that starting to evolve?
Yeah, I think so. I think that people who, right, like, so 2.5 years ago when I didn't know what ultra running was, I was kind of where some of my friends are now, but they enjoy going out on the trail and hiking. And so it kind of feels like full circle, Of course, I still have a really long way to go, but absolutely, I think it's super cool that, people are interested in this sport that we all love so much, because it is such an amazing sport. And so, the more people we can bring into it, the better. It's just, I hope it continues to grow, and we build fierce competitors. And I love what you said about, even though most people, hope to win if they're competitive, outlast your friend who's running the race as well. But at the same time, we show up and we do the best we can. And if our friend beats us that day, then of course we're going to be so stoked and excited for them. And I think that most of us have that in mind. And so when people who want to learn about the sport or try it out see that, that's definitely more enticing for them to come in and join us.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. The other part that's interesting, because you're sort of involved a little bit in the technology of the sport, I mean, Solomon certainly, we have better equipment to be out in all conditions, to run on different trails. I mean, Hoka's done an amazing job with their footwear. Ultra's done a great job. All different, but like, it's no longer just like putting on a pair of sneakers. And even the running backpacks. I mean, Solomon. I'm not just partial to them, but lots of brands. But that skin backpack is amazing. Like, you can go forever, and so that's pretty cool too. Do you see that side of it as well? Comment a little bit on how that helps all of us sort of get better and enjoy it even more.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, even something as simple as, the new Solomon water filter that I can take out. I
Right.
love long adventure days. And so if I'm going to go to the Sierra for, 9 hours with no water but natural, and, I need to filter it most of the time, that's so helpful to be able to do that. And that goes right in my pack. I mean, I hope to be a minimalist, because I think that helps with overall happiness. But with all of the amazing gear that all of our supportive brands, give to us and allow us to take us further, I'm so grateful. I think it definitely helps, in my opinion. I wish, and I think it can still be as simple as putting on a pair of shoes, of course, and just going out your front door. I think that we should never lose that, because that is what running's all about. But I'm also at the same time super grateful for, my advanced, like you said, Gore-Tex rain jacket that I can put on and feel dry in a crazy rainstorm.
Absolutely. Any product that we can end up finding that fuels us better, keeps us drier, less blisters, whatever that is, less foot pain or whatever that is. Yeah, it's just an absolute gift. Yeah. So Kelly, with the Chasing Tomorrow podcast, what we always do and how we kind of wrap things up is, and I'm super, curious about your answer when it comes to this, because, Joe and I, we've had a lot of guests on board that are, well into their careers, 10 years, 15, 20 years into their running careers or any of their other athletic endeavors, Olympians, on and so forth. You're an up and comer. You're 29, aren't you, Kelly? Yeah. So, 29 years old, and I think that you're just finding your stride in the sport. And so, what does tomorrow look like for Kelly Young? What are you doing to chase tomorrow?
I think it's as simple as the dream, right? Sticking to your dream and daring to go after it. I always say that, I don't know who said this, but I read it once, that there's a stream of love supporting my dreams, and it just makes me feel a little bit better, and I truly believe it. And when it comes back to my dreams, which is really just what we talked about in the beginning, to live a wholehearted life full of joy and experiences, whether they be good or bad. So coming back to that, and running, I know, is going to be a big part of all of that. So remembering what I'm capable of, what we're all capable of, and getting after it every day.
Well, you got two big fans here, Kelly. So we're going to be out there supporting you both virtually, but then, tap into us. We're going to have you back on this podcast after some more of these explorations that you're doing, to bring the perspective that you uniquely will have. And just keep chasing tomorrow, because you're doing a pretty darn good job of it. And we're happy to know you, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks so much, Joe. That's so sweet. And Dave, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can all get together in person someday soon, but I'll take virtually as well. So it's been great chatting, and I can't wait to see what's in store for all of us.
All right. Take care. Thanks very much.
See you, Kelly. Thanks, you.
Everybody. Talk to you later.